The autumn wind rustled through the maple trees lining the driveway of our childhood home as I parked my worn Honda Civic behind my sister Victoria's gleaming Mercedes. The Avec Céline Théondier sign stabbed into our perfectly manicured front lawn felt like a knife to the heart. This house held 30 years of memories, every Christmas, every birthday, every family dinner. And today they were selling it all. I'm Emily Foster, 35, living paycheck to paycheck as a high school art teacher. Not exactly the success story my family had hoped for. Unlike my sister Victoria, 38, a high-powered corporate lawyer, or my brother James, 32, who followed in Dad's footsteps as a real estate developer. They were the golden children. I was just Emily. Oh, look who finally showed up. Victoria's voice dripped with disdain as I walked up the driveway. She stood with James and Mom on the front porch, all dressed like they were attending a business meeting rather than selling our family home. I had to come, I said quietly. This is our home. Was our home, James corrected, scrolling through his phone. Now it's just another property to flip. Dad would have wanted it this way. Dad, he passed away 6 months ago from a heart attack. Mom had barely waited for the funeral flowers to wilt before announcing she was selling the house and moving to Florida. Victoria and James immediately supported the idea, eager to cash in on the property's value in this hot market. I was the only one who objected, the only one who remembered Dad's words about keeping the house in the family. But as usual, my opinion meant nothing. The auction starts in an hour, Mom said, checking her designer watch. Buyers are already arriving. Emily, try not to embarrass us by getting emotional. I watched as potential buyers began touring the house. Wealthy couples in expensive clothes. Property developers with calculating eyes. All seeing our home as just another investment opportunity. Each room they entered held a different memory. The kitchen where Dad taught me to bake his famous chocolate chip cookies. The living room where we gathered for family game nights before success and money divided us. The backyard where Grandpa built us a treehouse and told stories about our family's history. Grandpa, my throat tightened thinking of him. He passed away 2 years ago, but sometimes I could still hear his voice. Emmy, he'd say, sometimes the quietest person in the room holds the strongest cards. Ladies and gentlemen, the auctioneer's voice boomed across the front lawn. Please gather around. We're about to begin the auction for this prestigious property. Victoria shot me a warning look as I joined the crowd. Don't even think about making a scene. The auctioneer, a tall man in a sharp suit, began his pitch. We're looking at a magnificent 5-bedroom Victorian home, completely renovated in 2015. The starting bid is $850,000. My heart sank. I had barely $5,000 in my savings account. Victoria must have read my expression because she leaned over and whispered, "Don't worry, sis. Maybe you can rent the garden shed." The bidding began. Numbers flew back and forth, each higher than the last. $900,000, $950,000, $1.1 million. Mom beamed with each increasing bid, probably already mentally spending her share. I have $1.2 million from the gentleman in the blue suit, the auctioneer called. Do I hear $1.3 million? This is wrong, I said loud enough for nearby people to turn. This house shouldn't be sold. Emily, Victoria hissed. Shut up. No, I stepped forward. This was Dad's home. Our home. He wanted it to stay in the family. James grabbed my arm. You're making a fool of yourself. What are you going to do, buy it? With your teacher's salary? The crowd had gone quiet, watching our family drama unfold. Mom's face turned red with embarrassment. Look at her empty wallet. Victoria laughed mockingly. She can't even afford the garden shed, let alone bid on the house. Their laughter burned like acid, but something inside me hardened. I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope I'd been carrying for 2 years, the last thing Grandpa gave me before he died. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I have something to show the auctioneer. Victoria rolled her eyes. Oh please, what could you possibly have? I walked up to the auctioneer and handed him the envelope. His eyes widened as he read the contents, then read them again. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice serious. This auction is canceled. What? Mom shrieked. You can't cancel it. We have buyers here. The auctioneer held up the papers. I'm afraid I must. According to these legal documents, This property was transferred to Miss Emily Foster 2 years ago by the late Gerald Foster, her grandfather. He maintained ownership of the house even after gifting it to his son, with the condition that it would pass to his granddaughter Emily upon his death. The silence that followed was deafening. Victoria snatched the papers from the auctioneer's hands, her legal training kicking in as she scanned the documents. This is impossible," she stammered. "Daddy owned the house." "No," I said quietly. "Dad thought he owned it, but Grandpa knew what would happen when he died. He knew you'd all try to sell it. That's why he legally transferred it to me before he passed." The color drained from Mom's face. "You knew? You knew all this time and said nothing. Just like you all said nothing when you planned this auction without consulting me, when you divided up the rooms and furniture without including me, when you treated me like I didn't matter." James stepped forward, his business mind already calculating. "How much do you want for it?" I looked at my brother, seeing him clearly for the first time. "It's not for sale. Ever." "Don't be ridiculous," Victoria snapped. "You can't afford the property taxes or the maintenance. You'll have to sell eventually." I smiled, pulling out another document from my bag. "Actually, Grandpa thought of that too. He left a trust fund specifically for the house's upkeep. I've been managing it quietly for the past 2 years." The crowd of potential buyers began dispersing, some hiding smiles at the family drama they just witnessed. Mom sat down heavily on the front steps, her Florida dreams crumbling. "Miss Foster," the auctioneer said respectfully, "I apologize for the confusion. The auction is officially canceled." I nodded, then turned to my family. "You all have until the end of the month to move out." "Move out?" Mom's voice rose. "You're evicting us?" "You were ready to sell my home out from under me," I replied calmly. "Consider this karma." Victoria's face hardened. "We're your family." "No," I said, climbing the front steps and unlocking the door with my key, the key Grandpa had given me 2 years ago. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me." I stepped inside, memories washing over me. Dad's laugh echoing in the hallway, Grandpa's stories by the fireplace. The house seemed to welcome me home. "Oh," I turned back to them, still stunned on the lawn. "One more thing. Check your phones." As if on cue, their phones pinged with notifications. I timed the email perfectly. "What is this?" James demanded, staring at his screen. "Grandpa's video will," I explained. "The one the family lawyer conveniently lost after his death. The one where he explains exactly why he left the house to me. He saw how you all treated me, how you dismissed me, how you thought money and success were more important than family." Victoria's hands shook as she watched the video. Our grandfather's voice, strong and clear, laid out exactly why he made his decision. How he watched his family fragment, driven apart by greed and status. How he saw only one person stay true to the values he tried to teach us. "Emmy," his voice crackled through their phone speakers, "keeps the heart of this family alive. She's the only one who remembers what really matters." I closed the door, leaving them on the lawn with their shattered plans and broken assumptions. Inside, I ran my hand along the familiar wallpaper, feeling tears finally fall. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whispered to the quiet house. "I'll keep our home safe." Outside, I could hear Victoria's heels clicking down the driveway, James' angry voice, Mom's sobs. But inside, in the house that had always been meant for me, I felt at peace for the first time in years. The autumn wind continued rustling through the maple trees, but now it sounded like applause. Like Grandpa's gentle laughter, like justice. This was just the beginning. I had plans for this house. Plans that would honor Dad's memory and Grandpa's wisdom. Plans that would show my family that success isn't measured by bank accounts or business deals, but by the love you keep alive. But that would come later. For now, I sat in Dad's old armchair, pulled out his recipe for chocolate chip cookies, and smiled. Sometimes, the quietest person in the room really does hold the strongest cards. The next morning, I woke up in my old bedroom, sunlight streaming through the familiar curtains. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like I was still teenage Emily, dreaming of art school while my siblings chased real careers. But everything had changed. My phone showed 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages from family members. Not just Victoria, James, and Mom, but aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone had heard about yesterday's auction draw. "How dare you embarrass the family like this? Your grandfather was clearly not in his right mind. You need to sell the house and split it fairly." I ignored them all and headed downstairs to make coffee. That's when I heard the knocking, no pounding, on the front door. Emily, open this door right now. Victoria's voice cut through the wood, sharp as a knife. I opened the door to find not just Victoria, but an entire entourage. She brought her lawyer husband Thomas. James stood there with his business partner. Mom hovered in the background with Aunt Sarah, who'd always been her strongest ally in family disputes. We're here to discuss terms, Victoria announced, attempting to step inside. I blocked the doorway. There are no terms to discuss. The house is mine. Don't be childish, Thomas spoke up, pulling out some papers. We've reviewed the documents. There are several ways we can contest this. Really? I smiled, thinking of the other documents safely stored in Grandpa's old study. Like what? Grandfather's mental capacity at the time of transfer, Thomas began, listing off points. Undue influence, improper execution of documents. You mean the documents that were witnessed by 3 independent lawyers, including a geriatric care specialist who certified Grandpa's mental clarity? I asked innocently. Those documents. Victoria's face tightened. She recognized the tone. It was the same one she used in court when she had an ace up her sleeve. Emmy, Mom stepped forward, trying a different approach. Think about the family. This house has been our home for decades. The same home you were ready to sell to strangers yesterday. That was different, James protested. We were going to split the money. Like you split Dad's things. His workshop tools you sold without telling me. His art collection you divided up while I was at work. They had the grace to look uncomfortable. What do you want? Victoria finally asked. Name your price. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. Designer suit, perfect makeup, diamond earrings that probably cost more than my yearly salary. She'd always believed everything had a price. I want you to watch Grandpa's video, Will. All of it. We saw enough yesterday, James muttered. No, you saw the first part. There's more. I pulled out my tablet and played the second part of the video. Grandpa's face filled the screen, older and wiser than any of them remembered. If you're watching this, he began, it means Emily has finally revealed her inheritance, and knowing this family, you're all probably standing there thinking about how to fight it. Mom gasped softly. But here's what you don't know, Grandpa continued. Emily didn't just inherit this house. She inherited my vision for it. I watched their faces as Grandpa explained his dream, our dream. How this house could become an art center for underprivileged kids. How the spacious rooms could host classes, workshops, and galleries. How the garden could become a space for outdoor painting and sculpture. Emily understood what this house could be. Grandpa's voice grew softer. While the rest of you saw dollar signs, she saw possibilities. She saw heart. The video ended. Silence filled the entryway. You're turning our home into an art charity? Victoria's voice dripped with disbelief. No, I corrected her. I'm turning my home into something meaningful. Something Dad would have loved. Dad would have wanted. James began. Dad wanted his children to be happy. I cut him off. Not rich, not successful by your definition, but happy. When was the last time any of you were truly happy? The question hung in the air, uncomfortable and heavy. The renovation starts next month, I continued. I've already received 3 grants and Grandpa's trust fund will cover the rest. This house will finally serve a purpose bigger than our family draw. You can't do this alone, Mom said, though her voice lacked conviction now. Actually, I can. And I will. I stepped back, reaching for the door. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a class to teach. This isn't over, Victoria warned as they reluctantly moved back onto the porch. You're right, I agreed. It's just beginning. But not the way you think. I closed the door on their stunned faces, leaned against it, and breathed. The house seemed to breathe with me, its old walls holding decades of memories, but also new possibilities. My phone pinged with a message, not from family this time, but from Marcus, my best friend and fellow art teacher, ready to start planning the center. I smiled, typing back, more ready than they know. The war wasn't over. I knew Victoria well enough to expect more legal challenges, more family pressure, more drama. But for the first time in my life, I held not just the stronger cards, but the winning hand. And I intended to play it to create something beautiful. 3 months later, the transformation of the Foster family home was well underway. The formal dining room, where Mom once hosted her pretentious dinner parties, had become a bright art studio, sunlight streaming through the large windows onto easels and work tables. The living room, stripped of its expensive furniture, now housed a small gallery displaying local artists' work. I was hanging up student artwork in the front hall when a familiar Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Victoria stepped out, looking oddly uncertain, a strange expression for my always confident sister. "The place looks different," she said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "That's kind of the point," I replied, continuing to hang the colorful paintings created by my high school students. Victoria wandered through the first floor, her heels clicking on the hardwood floors that Dad had installed himself 20 years ago. She paused at a particularly vibrant abstract painting. "This is actually good," she admitted, studying the canvas. "Maria Rodriguez, 16 years old," I explained. She'd never had an art lesson before coming here. Her family can't afford extra classes. Victoria's expression flickered. "Is that what this is about? Proving some kind of point about money?" "No," I sighed, hanging the last painting. "It's about giving opportunities to kids who deserve them, like Grandpa did for us." "What do you mean?" I turned to face my sister. "Did you ever wonder how Dad afforded this house in the first place? How he paid for your law school? For James's business degree?" Victoria frowned. "Dad was successful." "Dad struggled for years," I corrected her. "Grandpa helped him quietly without making him feel like a failure. Just like he helped me set this up." Before Victoria could respond, voices echoed from the back of the house. My afternoon art class was arriving, a mix of teenagers from different backgrounds, all united by their love of art. "Miss Foster," Maria called out, her face lighting up as she entered. "I brought my portfolio for you to review." Other students filtered in, carrying sketchbooks and art supplies. They moved through the house with comfortable familiarity, heading to the studio that used to be our dining room. Victoria watched them, her legal mind probably calculating liability issues and zoning regulations. But I saw something else in her eyes, a hint of recognition. "That girl," she said quietly, "the one with the portfolio. She reminds me of you at that age. Before you and James decided art wasn't a real career." Victoria had the grace to look uncomfortable. "We were harsh." "You were cruel," I corrected her. "But that's not why I'm doing this. Come on, I want to show you something." I led her upstairs to Dad's old study, now converted into a small office. On the wall hung a painting, one of my earliest works, a landscape of our backyard that Dad had proudly displayed despite its amateur quality. "Dad kept this," Victoria said, surprised. "He kept everything I painted." I opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, including this. Inside was a sketch I'd done of Victoria when she graduated law school. Dad had commissioned it secretly, wanting to surprise her, but she'd been too busy with her new job to attend the family dinner where he planned to give it to her. Victoria's hands trembled slightly as she held the drawing. "I never knew." "There's a lot you never knew," I said softly. "About Dad. About Grandpa. About me." The sound of laughter drifted up from downstairs, young voices full of creativity and joy. "The lawyers think they can still contest the will," Victoria said, but her voice lacked conviction. "They can try," I smiled. "But Grandpa was smarter than that. He made sure everything was ironclad." "Why didn't he tell us?" "About Grandpa's plan, about the house." "Would you have listened, or would you have tried to talk him out of it, like you talked Dad out of supporting my art school dreams?" Victoria placed the sketch carefully back in its folder. "We thought we were protecting you." "No," I shook my head. "You thought you were better than me, smarter, more worthy, but Grandpa saw something different. And now?" "Now?" I gestured to the house around us, filled with young artists discovering their talents. "Now I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." Victoria moved to the window, watching the students arriving below. For a moment she looked younger, more like the sister who used to braid my hair and share secrets before success and money created walls between us. "Mom's still angry," she said finally. "Mom's always angry about something." "James is confused. He can't understand why Grandpa chose you." "Because James measures everything in dollars and cents," I replied. "Some things are worth more than money." Victoria turned back to me, her lawyer's mask finally cracking. "I miss this house," she admitted. "I miss before, when we were just sisters." We can still be sisters, I said, but not like before. Not with you trying to control everything to make me fit your idea of success. A student's voice called up the stairs. Miss Foster, can you help us set up for class? Coming. I called back, then turned to Victoria. You can stay and watch the class if you want. See what your childhood home has become. She hesitated, then shook her head. Not today. But maybe soon. As she walked down the stairs, she paused at the front door. That girl, Maria? Her painting really is good. I know, I smiled. Sometimes talent shows up in unexpected places. After Victoria left, I joined my students in the studio. Maria was setting up her easel, her face serious with concentration. Around her, other young artists were preparing for class, their energy filling the old house with new life. This was what Grandpa had seen, not just an inheritance to pass down, but a legacy to build up, not just a house to preserve, but a dream to grow. As I began the day's lesson, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Behind me, the studio buzzed with creative energy, and for a moment, I thought I saw Grandpa's smile in my home. 1 year later, I stood in the garden, watching as crowds gathered for the Foster Art Center's first annual exhibition. The maple trees that had witnessed our family drama now provided shade for outdoor sculptures, and fairy lights twinkled in their branches. Inside, the house buzzed with excitement. Student artwork filled every wall, each piece telling its own story of discovery and growth. Maria Rodriguez's work had its own featured wall. She'd just received a full scholarship to art school, the first of many successes we'd celebrate. Quite a transformation, a familiar voice said behind me. I turned to find James, looking somewhat out of place in his business suit among the artistic crowd. Didn't expect to see you here, I said, surprised by his presence. Victoria told me I should come, he admitted. She said I needed to see what you've built. We walked through the gallery together, stopping occasionally as James actually looked at the artwork, really saw it for the first time. That's by Tommy Chen, I explained as we paused before a striking photograph. He was living in his car with his mom when he started coming here. Now he's got a photography internship, and they found stable housing. You're not just teaching art, James realized. You're changing lives. Like Grandpa changed ours, I nodded. Though some of us forgot that part. The front door opened and I heard a familiar click of heels. Mom stood in the doorway, looking older and softer than the last time I'd seen her. Emily, she said quietly, your Aunt Sarah told me about the exhibition. I hope it's okay that I came. Before I could respond, Maria rushed up to me, her eyes shining. Miss Foster. The gallery owner from downtown wants to include my piece in their next show. I hugged her, proud tears threatening to spill. I told you were ready. Mom watched the exchange, something shifting in her expression. She reminds me of you, she said after Maria had rushed off to tell her family the news. The way your eyes light up when you talk about art, you used to look just like that. Before you told me to grow up and get a real job, the words came out sharper than I intended. Before I forgot what mattered, Mom corrected softly. Your father, he always defended your art. He said you had a gift, not just for creating, but for seeing the beauty in things, in people. The exhibition space filled with more visitors, the sounds of conversation and laughter echoing through rooms that had once been so cold and formal. Victoria arrived later with her husband and, surprisingly, a donation check for the Art Center's scholarship fund. It's not an apology, she said, handing it to me. It's an investment in what you've built here. As the evening wound down, I found myself in Dad's old study, now my office, looking at the family photo on my desk. It had been taken years ago, before success and money drove us apart, before we forgot what family really meant. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. James stood there, holding a familiar wooden box. Found this in my storage unit, he said, placing it on my desk. Dad's old art supplies. The ones I sold without telling you. I tracked them down and bought them back. I opened the box, touching the worn brushes Dad had used to teach me my first painting lessons. We were wrong, James said simply. All of us. We thought we knew better, but Grandpa knew best. He usually did. I smiled, picking up one of Dad's brushes. The house, James looked around the office. It's more alive now than it ever was before. Because it has purpose, I explained. It's not just walls and memories anymore. It's possibility and future. That night, after everyone had left, I sat on the porch swing Grandpa had installed when we were kids. The fairy lights still twinkled in the maple trees, and through the windows I could see the student artwork glowing in the soft evening light. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. Family dinner next Sunday, my place. Then another from James. Count me in if Emily's coming. And finally, from Mom. I'd like to hear more about your students if you're willing to share. I smiled, typing back a simple yes. Some things can't be fixed with money or legal documents. Some wounds take time to heal. But as I sat there, in the house that had become so much more than just a family home, I knew Grandpa had been right all along. Sometimes the quietest person in the room doesn't just hold the strongest cards. They hold the key to building something beautiful from the broken pieces of the past.